Thinking about moving to Montgomery Township here in central New Jersey? Before you do, there's a few things worth understanding because what looks straightforward on paper feels very different once you're in the town. So today, we're going to break down the top 10 things buyers need to know and don't realize until after they've already moved. So welcome to the Wilton Report. I'm Josh Wilton. I run the #1 boutique real estate company in central New Jersey. I co-own it with two amazing partners, and I've helped thousands of people buy and sell real estate in central New Jersey. So I can use that to help you make smarter decisions and have much better experience otherwise. And by the end of this video, you'll have a clear sense of whether Montgomery Township fits your lifestyle, your budget, your long-term plans before you commit. Okay, so let's get to it. The first thing I will tell you about moving to or being a resident of Montgomery Township, it doesn't matter, is the mailing address confusion. In other episodes, I have talked about the Princeton Zip Code Effect. Montgomery Township is its own universe with zip code confusion. So the first thing you need to know about living in Montgomery Township is that when you get mail, it's probably never going to say Montgomery Township. It will say Skillman. It will say Princeton, it will say Blouenburg, but it will probably never say Montgomery Township. So that's important to realize. So let's talk about the zip codes in Montgomery Township, and I'm just going to kind of go through them at a high level. First off is Skillman. So Skillman is usually the southern and central parts. That's 08558. This is where the high school, the municipal building are located. I would call it the central part of the municipality of Montgomery. Belmead tends to be the northernmost part of Montgomery Township. That zip code is 08502. Princeton is part of Montgomery Township, even though it's not part of Montgomery Township. Parts of Montgomery Township have a Princeton mailing address. The kids do not go to Princeton High School. It is not part of Princeton. It is Montgomery, so there always is a little bit of confusion on that. That tends to be southern and eastern edges of the township. There is some debate whether there's a premium on real estate prices for a Princeton mailing address. I don't think so. I wouldn't pay extra for a Princeton mailing address. But there is a panache of having Princeton in your mailing address. There's Blouenburg. Blouenburg is a very small, very historic little hamlet, I would say, in the north center of town that has its own tiny little post office. So there's no big deal about it. It's just when you move there, right, and you give your address to people, you're going to say Skillman, Princeton, Blouenburg, Belmead, and they're going to go, I thought you lived in Montgomery. I do. So that's sort of like a thing you'll have to deal with for the next 20 years. The only other thing that might get a little bit confusing is when you sign up for your utilities. The utility providers always have a little bit of an issue figuring out exactly where Montgomery Township is. The second thing is, I will tell you, the schools in Montgomery Township are A++. They are scorchingly hot, and they are driving, in my opinion, the number of large relocation activity we're seeing into Montgomery Township. It is a blue ribbon school district. I will tell you, it's one of the top reasons people move to the township. There is the house effect, meaning if I want to live in West Windsor or Princeton, the same house will cost a little bit less in Montgomery Township, and you'll probably get more land or whatever. But the school district, it's an A+. It's awesome, right? People love it. And from what I can tell on the scores, it's improving constantly. So it's been a huge draw the last couple of years into Montgomery Township, keeping supply down and demand very high. So again, in Montgomery Township, there's 2 elementary schools. There's 2 middle schools. The elementary schools are Orchard Hill. It's K through 2, pre-K through 2, Village Elementary 3 to 4. There's 2 middle schools. They happen to be like right next to each other, so it's not like they're too far away. And it's grades 5 and 6 in one, 7 and 8 in the other. And there's Montgomery Township High School, which is a beautiful facility. All my kids played sports there. Really nice to go to. Great facilities, great campus. It's just very modern, very awesome. So it's about 4,500 students with an 11-to-1 student-teacher ratio. So again, it's great schools. The other thing, too, I will tell you about living in or moving to Montgomery Township is I call it the suburban or rural split. And by the way, it's nothing negative. It just has such diverse housing and style and feel. So it's a little bit of a weird Jekyll and Hyde geography. So there are subdivisions, right? There's the townhouse subdivision. I call it the Blue Spring Corridor. It's sort of one townhouse subdivision after the other. Montgomery Hills, Montgomery Woods, right? There's 3 or 4 townhouse communities right there. There's Cherry Valley, right, which is a rather famous subdivision, very planned. At the center of it, pool, tennis courts, golf, which you don't get by living there. You have to pay extra, but it's right there. And then if you go to the Sourland Mountains, right, which is right part of Montgomery Township, you have farms and you have older homes and you have ranches out in the woods that you can't even believe you're still in New Jersey. You literally feel like you're in Vermont. So you have this incredible proximity to Princeton, to transportation, to 206, 287, 5 minutes away, 10 minutes away in a different part of the township, you're in Vermont. So it's got something for everybody in terms of housing and housing style. So it's like that suburban rural split. It's not a negative. I think it's incredibly positive because it provides a diverse housing stock for the people who both live there and want to move there. The one thing that is different in Montgomery, I would say, than Mercer County as a whole, there's a lot more septic in Montgomery. And again, not a negative, and I'll explain why. So Montgomery is a large township, and it's not comparatively dense compared to a West Windsor, a Plainsboro, a Princeton. Those are dense, more houses per lot. Probably you could say smaller lots overall. So a lot of Montgomery Township relies on private septic systems, which means you maintain it yourself. As a buyer, it's important to know, are you on public sewer or do you have a private septic system, right? You don't want to learn that after the fact. So that's important to know. Is sewer safe and perfect? No, because sewer lines get corrupted by trees and tree roots. Matter of fact, just this week, 2 public sewer lines were corrupt and 2 transactions we're working on. One is a colleague actually buying a house and bamboo roots grew into the sewer line. That's a problem. And another one is on a house we're selling where some tree roots grew through it. So just know what you're dealing with, septic or sewer. There's a little more maintenance with septic, but if it's a good system and it's new and it's maintained, you're fine. If it's sewer, right, and you've gotten rid of all the cast iron pipes and you've changed it with PVC, fine, because tree roots can't go through PVC. So it's a septic versus sewer type of town. And again, where is that located? I would say closer to Princeton, the downtown, the Skillman area tends to be more sewer. And then as you go out towards the Sourlands and the Ridge, you tend to have more septic, right? So the northern, western part of the municipality and some of the northeast parts of the municipality. So pretty interesting division. Property taxes. New Jersey is notorious for property taxes. And why? Because the schools are so good. And I'm going to give you the breakdown as to where your money goes in Montgomery Township, and the results might surprise you. So yes, the township has property taxes. I can't say they're comparatively high to Princeton or West Windsor. I'd say they're probably a little bit more balanced and better. But they go towards the schools and they go towards open space. Montgomery has an open space program. So what does that mean? They like the rural character in Montgomery. So here's the breakdown for taxes in Montgomery Township. 65% of a tax bill goes to schools. So if your taxes are $10,000, $6,500 is going to the local schools. Why is that important? Because people move there but to put their kids in the best school possible, right? So if you're a seller and you're like, gosh, I hate my taxes going up, right? Is it cheaper to pay $2,000 in taxes and gain $100,000 in equity? Right? That's sort of always the raging debate. Not saying it's perfect, but 65% of the tax bill goes to the schools, 15% to the municipality, 18% to Somerset County for regional infrastructure, and then there's a 2% open space and fire tax. And depending where you live in Montgomery Township, one side of the municipality has a smidge higher fire tax and the other side has a smidge lower. So something to know, it's statistically negligible. It's not a huge amount of money, but believe it or not, different houses in different parts of the town could pay a little bit in different taxes. So it is a commuter town. There is not a ton of industry in Montgomery Township. It tends to have a rural character. There are some commercial buildings in the area, but there's not that many of them, right? So it's a commuter town. So people are driving north on 206 to Bridgewater, to 78, right? To the sort of that area up there with a lot of pharma, a lot of finance, Bloomberg is in Montgomery Township, believe it or not. And so it doesn't have its own train station. So you have to drive in and out of it. It is a car reliant town. So if you're taking the train, a lot of people will drive that 15 to 20 minutes south to the Princeton Junction train station or go north to New Brunswick to catch the train up there. So 206 is your main artery in and out of town. It does get bottlenecked during rush hour. It is New Jersey. We like our cars and we like traffic. We don't like taxes, but we pay them for the schools. The other thing I'll tell you about number 8, about living in Montgomery Township, it's rural and it's beautiful, right? I'd say the Crown Jewel Park, other than the Sauerland Mountain Preserve, which is amazing. Everybody should go for a walk there once a week and improve their mental health, is 𝐂𝐐𝐓 Park. 𝐂𝐶 Park is 250 acres of park. And I would describe it as more or less in the center part of town. So you get amazing views of the Sauerlands at sunset because the Sauerlands is to the west. So the sun is setting over the mountains. There's water, there's paved loops, there's dog walking areas. It's beautiful. So 𝐂𝐶 Park is probably the crown jewel park in Montgomery. There's plenty of other parks, soccer parks, but the Sauerland Mountains and I think 𝐂𝐶 Park are probably the top 2 I would refer to as premier beautiful outdoor spaces in Montgomery Township. The one thing I will say, Montgomery Township doesn't have a core downtown. It doesn't have a main street. 206 is the main artery north-south, and that serves as there's little strip malls there, right? So there's Whole Foods is coming in. There's a shop right there. Tiger's Tail. There's sushi, right? There's a bunch of little smaller malls there. What's interesting is around that downtown, right? There's an airport. So if you're an aviation enthusiast, you can have a plane. But around that airport, Whole Foods is coming in, right? Restaurants are coming in. Housing's coming in that downtown area. So that little donut, much like in Robbinsville Town Center, Plainsboro built a town center, West Windsor is building a town center around the hub of the train station. Montgomery's doing the same thing in that little downtown. So what does that mean? It means you're going to have more diversity. There's going to be some people who will be able to walk to the downtown, to restaurants and shopping, etc. For the most part, everyone in this valley will have to drive, but that little area will become a little more dense. Traffic will get a little bit more intense. But at the end of the day, you're going to have more shopping and more experience as a consumer and a future resident. So the one other thing I'll talk about in Montgomery Township is it's quiet. And I'm not saying that in a negative space. Princeton definitely has a little bit of a hustle and bustle. So people who live in the downtown of Princeton would live in New York. They'd live in London. They like a little bit of action. They want to hear a siren every once in a while, right? It's sort of a headier place to live, a little busier place to live, higher energy. Princeton has rural and Princeton has quiet as well. Montgomery, other than that 206 corridor, is like, it's quiet. Like at night, it's quieter, right? The lawns are a little bit bigger, et cetera, et cetera. So people do definitely move there for the peace, for the space, the quiet. There's a strong history of preserving the rural character in Montgomery. Until very recently, every year they had a rodeo in Montgomery. So unfortunately, I never got a chance to go to it, which I regret. So from a nightlife perspective, if you want, big restaurants and sort of that kind of thing, you'll go to New Brunswick, Philly, Princeton, New York, right? And then Montgomery will have its own little core downtown. But again, I would say it prefers the Starlight versus anything else. That being said, change is coming, and it's not necessarily bad change. They just opened a brand new library. It's beautiful. The municipal building just opened. It's beautiful. And I will tell you, the staff at the Montgomery Township Municipal Building are the nicest people on the planet. I'm not saying the other ones aren't, but they just seem to go out of their way for their residents, for people who have questions. So it's been great dealing with them. But again, like Whole Foods is coming in, that's going to be the centerpiece, and it's going to be a 292,000 square foot mixed use lifestyle market right in the heart of Montgomery, right in that sort of that core downtown area. It's going to be a little outdoor mall. Going to be parking, there's going to be walking, there's going to be retail, there's going to be housing, et cetera, et cetera. So Montgomery Township's coming. The one thing I will say, a friend of mine does own a hot yoga studio in Montgomery Township. So I'm going to give Maury a shout out, Breathing Dragon Yoga. So if you're a hot yoga enthusiast, they even have hot yoga in Montgomery Township. And I'd say half of Mercer and Somerset County goes to that studio for yoga. So it has everything you need as a resident, as a family, as a solo person, as an entrepreneur. Great place. Check it out. So if you're thinking about moving to Montgomery Township, the most important thing is that it actually fits how you live, right? Your budget, your long-term plans, and not just how it looks good on paper or on Zillow or wherever. And if Montgomery Township is on your short list, you might also want to check out our recent video on moving to Princeton just to see, and you can compare and contrast Montgomery with the other towns. Again, this is Josh Wilton. This is the Wilton Report. I'll see you next week.